All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sunday evening. It's after 8 o'clock. We're starting late tonight, but this is the Brushfire Mind. We got a couple of technical issues, as you can see. It's just Steve and I right now. We're waiting on Cameron to try to get in. Having some problems with his audio equipment. I apologize for that, but I believe that Steve and I can manage to get you guys a pretty good show. If you're just joining us. Make sure you pop into the chat window there. We're keeping an eye on that so we can have a conversation with you. Now, we're going to deviate this week a little bit from our usual show format. As we all know, we just had the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. I tell you what, at the beginning of this year, we made some predictions on the 1st. On New Year's Day, we made some predictions. Now, obviously, we didn't predict that Donald Trump was going to be inaugurated president. That was a little on the nose. But I mentioned it because last year, early in the year, we made some predictions. Now, one of my predictions this year is that in July of this year, there will be forecasts published which suggest that we will experience 5.7% GDP growth by the end of this year. That will be the report going into next year. So that's one of my predictions. To give you a frame of reference on that, as early as October of 2015, when the Donald had first announced, I not only predicted that he would win the nomination and win the presidency. I invite you to go back and watch our show as far back as that. That early on, actually described how he would win the election, how he would secure the nomination. And buddy, if I'm not just beating Nostradamus over the head. And then if you're looking at those, I'll drop links to those extra videos in the description below after the show's over. Once you go back and look at those, I also invite you to check out our episode at the beginning of last June entitled War is Prior to Ethic, where I explained why and how Hillary was losing then and was going to lose. And it's like I've got a crystal ball, except that's not the trick. This is why I bring it up. I'm not just tooting my own horn. I'm not just stroking my own beard here. I keep hearing these talking heads, the news commentators. I keep hearing all over the place. Oh, Donald Trump won. He's been inaugurated. What a surprise. What an upset. We never saw that coming. Nobody could have predicted that. Really? Nobody could have predicted that? Guys, you go back and watch how I laid out my predictions, and it's this simple. If you didn't see Donald coming, you're not paying attention. If you were surprised when Donald Trump won the presidency, you just weren't watching the news. You weren't paying attention. You have failed to put your finger on the zeitgeist. The nation has a pulse. That pulse is not difficult to ascertain. Now, okay, I may have a slight advantage. I may have a little bit of a background. But come on, guys. Wasn't that hard to pull? So we got the Trump in. We got the inauguration out of the way. And here's our standard deviation. Usually our format for the week, our new format, we do the fallacy of the week, where we describe a logical fallacy that's common in liberal assertions. And hey, Rod's on. Hey, brother. Rod just sent us a message on the chat window there. Steve, tell Rod we love him. I know you can hear me, baby. So our new format, we're doing the fallacy of the week every week, where we talk about logical fallacies and how they fall into liberal arguments and how to call them out and destroy them. Because we should not tolerate poor argument. We don't have to tolerate poor argument. And then what we will do is we'll talk about the news of the week and point out where those fallacies have emerged and been asserted. Last week, what we talked about was The Meryl Streep speech. She did that ridiculous call out and just lambasted poor Donald at the award ceremony. And the fallacy of the week was false equivalency, because what she did is she suggested that Donald Trump wants to throw out all immigrants, which is not correct. If we want to stop illegal immigration, stop the problems, the economic problems of illegal immigration, stop the crime problems of illegal immigration, that is not the same as saying we want to throw out all immigrants, all foreigners. There's your false equivalency. She went through and suggested that all these people that were in the audience with her, and she called them by name, were from this country and that country. It's like, yeah, but did any of them jump the border fence? Did any of them swim from Cuba? Did any of them paddle their way over here on a raft from the Horn of Africa? No, they didn't. No, they got passports and visas and took aircraft or cruise ships and came over in the lap of comfort, and then paid money and took tests and came to this country the way it's supposed to be done. They're not the people we're trying to get out. We're trying to get rid of. They're not the people that are causing a problem. They're not the people that are engaging in rape gangs. That's your false equivalency. Well, this week, instead of going into a false equivalency, we're going to talk about the trends in the media that we've seen over the last practically decade. Because let's not forget, it didn't just start with Obama. Long before the election of Barack Obama, the mainstream media had drifted way far to the left. Now, they've always leaned that way, but they started much
there
like
we go.
Much like with what's happened with Donald
you
Trump.
had.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of us was having a problem with the feed there. I was trying to talk through. You had frozen in my screen. I don't know if I froze in yours. I don't know who had the lag there, but there was a big chunk missing right then.
Okay, well, we'll find it in production, and I'll clip it out and fix it. We're going through it again here. Anyway, sorry guys. Anyway, the same crap that the left is trying to pull on Donald right now, where they're trying to start off by declaring his presidency illegitimate. They did the same bullshit, to a lesser degree, I'll grant, but the same crap to W. Bush 43 had to put up with that crap, not just going into the inauguration and for the few weeks after, but throughout his whole presidency. Now, Bush 43, W is not my favorite president. He did a lot of stuff right. My problem with W has always been that while he was quick to act when it was necessary, he was weak in allowing us to prosecute our wars. If he'd have just taken the leash off, there wouldn't have been a war for Barack Obama to fight. But Obama, like a Democrat, continued to play at the game of war, not knowing correctly how to prosecute one. And that is why we're still in a war, in several wars. And we have new wars, which we wouldn't have had except for the bumbling failure of this last administration.
Incidentally, just to throw in an interjection here for lack of other input, because I can't stomp on your argument. Peace Prize winner doesn't have their medal taken away from them after they dropped 26,000 bombs?
Nope.
Just saying.
Well, in fairness, he didn't do anything to get the Peace Prize. So
that's true.
Why should any particular action lose? If no particular action earned him the Peace Prize, why should any particular action lose him the Peace Prize?
And why should it matter to anybody else who ever holds one ever again?
Precisely. So,
Sure.
So let's dig into. I just want to pick on some of this media stuff for a minute. I'm not going to go through and rehash all of it, but I'm going to mention a lot of it. I'm not even going to bother putting links to articles on this one, because the things that we're about to mention and discuss briefly are all common enough knowledge and of high enough visibility that you're not going to have to go digging for it to fact check me.
Right. And we may not be chronologically correct, but feel free to join the chat and remind us of any we don't catch.
So think back. Throughout the last 8 years, what did we have? We had the Fast and the Furious. We had Benghazi. We had the Clinton email scandals. We had Obama's name popping up in the Clinton emails, and that didn't get talked about very much. Let's not forget about the Medvedev hot mic incident, the red line. Oh, don't cross the red line. Well, and he backed down. Obamacare has been papered over and lied about with frequent. We keep hearing more Americans have health insurance than ever. No, different Americans have health insurance than ever. Now what you have is people who used to purchase their own health insurance, can afford their own health insurance, can't buy it, and people who couldn't afford their own health insurance because they won't go get a damn job have it, because now the people that can't afford it anymore can't afford it because they're paying for the other people to have it. So what we have, as much as capitalism may be the unequal distribution of wealth, communism is the equal distribution of poverty, and you must never forget that. Socialism, it's great until you run out of.
There is no mystery to that. Every time it's been tried, that's the way it plays out. It works great till you run out of money.
Not complicated.
Not at all.
So, Fast and the Furious, nobody went to jail. So people died. A lot of people died. Benghazi, people died. Nobody was held accountable. No accountability. We sent one poor filmmaker to jail. Okay, he made a shitty film. The film is actually shitty. I don't know if you watched it. Go for it. It doesn't have my endorsement. It's garbage. But it got blamed for the incident in Benghazi. And then how was Benghazi reported? Oh, Ambassador Stevens died. No, that's not what happened. That doesn't quite cover. Ambassador Stevens was brutally sodomized to death in the streets in the midst of a cheering crowd. I mean, come on, guys. Paint me a word picture. Let's paint one. There you go. There it is. You had Katie Couric. You had Katie Couric's bullshit anti-gun special, where it was just debunked immediately. You've got Barry O on the TV all the time talking about the gun show loophole and the internet loophole. Kids, there is no such thing as a gun show loophole. It does not exist. If you go to a gun show and purchase a firearm from a dealer, you have to go through a background check. If you purchase a firearm from a private citizen, just like any other private property which is not transacted across a state line, then the government has no business in that transaction, period. However, if you go and purchase your weapon from a friend, a straw purchase, you purchase, if I wanted to sell Steve a gun, if I wanted to sell Steve my gun, that's perfectly legal because it is a contract between two sovereign individuals. However, if it is later discovered that Steve is a felon who purchased a firearm from me, and it can be argued, proved, and arbitrated that I had a reasonable expectation to know that Steve was a felon, then I could be held liable for it. Selling a gun to a felon with or without a background check is also a crime. There is no gun show loophole. And then he talked about the internet loophole. I'm here to tell you, here's how it works. You go online, you can go to websites that sell guns, and you can buy a gun. And you can have that gun delivered to any address that you want to have it to, as long as that address happens to be an FFL licensed firearms dealer who will conduct a background check before you're allowed to pick that weapon up and walk out the door with it. There is no internet loophole.
If it happens without that paperwork in place, that has been a breach of the law.
The closest you can get is if I was a felon and I asked Steve to order the gun for me and go pick it up at the gun store for me, and he did. His background check comes back clean. They sell him the gun. He brings it back. I give him cash. Now I'm a felon with a gun in my hand.
And I'm a felon for having sold it to him.
He's still committed a crime. I, by purchasing the firearm from him, by engaging with him in this transaction, have now committed another crime. And so has he. There is no gun show loophole. There is no internet loophole. The only way for a felon to purchase a firearm in the United States of America is to commit a crime in the course of the transaction.
Absolutely.
So you've got that. Just in the last few weeks, we've had the Golden Shower Gate. We've had all the crying about the Electoral College. We've had the lefties calling poor young Trump, poor young Master Trump, saying he's autistic and, oh, he's going to be the first homeschool shooter. Really? Really? Do a little bit of reading. The boy actually goes to a school.
The boy's 10 years old. Why is he a part of this discussion anyhow? Obama's kids were off limits and nobody attacked them for pretty much anything. The entire run of his presidency.
Obama's kids were off limits, and they did some shady shit that we weren't allowed.
Eventually, they did.
Yeah, they pulled not a lot. I'm not saying that they were running around doing a bunch of crazy crap, but they pulled a couple of shady shit moves, and I'm not going to get into them because, like we're saying, the kids are off limits. But I just want to point out the utter hypocrisy of it. You've got some shady shit going on with Obama's kids. What has Barron done? What has he done for anybody to call him out on it? Nothing. He's a 10-year-old kid. The only thing he's done is his daddy's Donald Trump. So stop pretending like that's okay. It's not. It's not fucking okay. And okay. So what have we got here? Look at your Facebook feeds. Look at the fake news coming across that. Think about Golden Showergate. Think about Obama's Medvedev hot mic comments getting just papered over. Think about nobody's heard anything about Eric Holder and Fast and the Furious since he never went to jail for it. Think about when the Trayvon Martin incident happened and the first audio
misrepresentation of the misrepresentation of Ferguson, about another half a dozen shooters that the initial line to come out that was touted and yelled the loudest was absolutely incorrect. But you were led to believe it anyway.
But it wasn't just factually inaccurate. It was the sort of factually contrary that can only be produced by active, volitional contribution. Somebody went out of their way to make a lie. Mm-hmm. All of that together. And here's what you have. The messaging doesn't qualify anymore. You no longer have to accept positions posited by these chuckleheads. When somebody posts an argument, if all they've got is some shit they read on CNN or MSNBC or Facebook, well, what you have is a person who doesn't have opinions, doesn't have free thought, has not considered any factors. Why do you hate Trump so much? Oh, well, he's a racist and a misogynist. Huh. Figured that out all by yourself, did you? I'm sure I'm sure you managed to come back to that conclusion by a very careful scrutinization of the evidence. Read some speeches, did we? No? Oh, well, perhaps you watched some, perhaps you watched him make some speeches and heard him actually say some. No? Oh, there was that court case in the early 70s when it was really popular for black nationalists to file lawsuits against random white business people. That's what you got. Because, I mean, the more recent court cases were, I built a golf course, and if you won't let blacks and Jews come to my golf course, then I'll shut it down and nobody can play. Come on, guys. There is literally not only no evidence to support this argument that Trump's a racist, misogynist, blah, 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 all your phobic horse shit. There is active evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, especially the misogyny. There is an active bit of obfuscation on the part of the left to not announce the fact and tout the fact that a level of the glass ceiling has been broken that wasn't ever broken before. Trump's campaign manager was the first woman to successfully get a president made out of her campaign. Stuff.
Yep. Trump also hired the first female foreman to ever build a major any construction project in the United States. I mean, the Trump dynasty has been riddled with first for women's and first for blacks, and I mean,
and some of the first for not caring who you slept with as long as you could do the job. There were a lot of. Honestly, the whole way across it's always been seemingly, the more you look at it, he tried to get the best people for the positions he had open.
Well, I'm a big fan of the meme. There's been a meme coming across Facebook that says Donald Trump wants to take rights away from women and throw the gays out of the country. Did he convert to Islam?
Yeah, right.
Because, I mean, come on, guys. It's not hard.
How about the false equivalency I called out earlier? We'll just throw that in here because if they haven't seen it by now, you'll see it soon. The woman at the march recently holding the sign about she wants women to have as many rights as guns.
Yeah.
Which ought to be fun considering a gun doesn't have a right to go to the polls on election day. They're quite effectively banned. They're banned from entering any federal building.
And they can't drive.
Flying on aircraft without being locked in a case and put in luggage. I could go on and on, but say again?
They're not allowed to drive.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my gun can't drive my car. It's definitely, well, I don't know that it's against the law, but it's certainly frowned upon if found.
None of my guns can go get they're not allowed to go get a job. I found that out because I was encouraging them. I figured if they all went to work at McDonald's, it'd help out a lot. But nope. So, all right, we've torn off on that enough. We've got 20.
Yeah, just making the point. You always have to pick apart the stories you're being spoon-fed because over and over and over, at least the last 5 years and a little bit further beyond that, everybody has been inundated. And it's not just mainstream media. This stuff comes out of all the kook sites and everything else across Facebook. And it's on both sides. There are some hard right sites that make up enough stuff too. You're fact-checking because you are getting played.
Yeah, I mean, even on the far right, you've got Alex, Sergeant of a Con calls him Alex. They're putting fluoride in the water to make the frogs Gay Jones. And every time I hear that, I almost pee a little. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you've got garbage coming out of both sides. Watch for it. And guys, I promise, we will try to jump on the big ones and debunk what needs debunked as much as we can. And for those of you who are joining us from the Facebook page, Trump Friends, hey, we need your likes, we need your shares, we need your subscriptions, get the message out. Remind people that we're here to support our president and our way of life, right? And that even without glowingly endorsing Donald Trump, I've been on the Trump train since day one. Steve's a libertarian. Okay, so that's we differ a little bit on this. But come on,
Yeah,
brother.
I'm not a Trump supporter, but he's the president now. I'm optimistic and hopeful that this is going to work out for the better.
Exactly what I was getting at. Now, speaking of the Donald, we're gonna show you a little clip real quick. And before we do, I want to preface it. I am gonna steal a bit of comedy from Rush Limbaugh, and I'm doing it for a reason. Because Rush did this little bit on the radio right after the inauguration. I'm just gonna kind of parrot what he did for a minute because he did it on the radio, and I want you to get the visual. So, Steve, if you could go ahead and roll that clip.
For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land.
All right, so go ahead and kill it. So they're standing right behind him. This is the bit that Rush did on the radio. He pointed out that as Donald's doing this, and let me tell you something, we're going to be looking for him to do this, to take a lashing to the politicians, even the ones that are on the right, that have failed. Because let me tell you, throughout the whole Obama presidency, we managed to take back control of the House and the Senate, and they still didn't do their jobs. So this cowardice, this weakness has to be addressed. And there's the Donald. They're right behind him. You see the stairs going up in the video there, and you see the people, the little soft people putting their baggies on, right? Because they're afraid of the water. These are the people he's talking about, the people that have failed, the people that have not been fighting for you. And buddy, we're going to start adding. We're going to add a segment to the show periodically. It'll be labeled #Woodshed to point out when the Trumpster takes these guys out and really strips their hides and says, "Look, boys, it's time to go to work." And I can't wait to hear him tell somebody they're fired. All right. This episode, unlike most of our episodes, has been mostly me talking with less input than I would usually prefer from my co-hosts, largely in the absence of one. So we're down some co-hosts, and poor Steve just, brother, I hate it for you. You've kind of been sitting there too quiet most of this. Some good contributions, but let's go ahead and move on.
Well, we'd be remiss. I mean, we have noted that we do have a missing man at the moment. Hopefully we can get Cam past his electronic bugs and back into the show next week, because honestly, yeah, it's easier when he and I can argue. I would be remiss if we didn't call this out, because it just happened tonight, and I know he wants to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
There was a sports ball game tonight, and the Atlanta Falcons, who have been dry for so long, I won't say won. I would say they ran over the Green Bay Packers 44-21. And I know Cam would be yelling and jumping and doing cartwheels, because that was like 21-0 in the first half or something like that, right? I didn't watch the game, I have to admit, but props to them. And I will say this, if they can take it all the way, that game is deserved most by you guys that have the faded, washed too many times, pinholes all through them, Atlanta Falcons t-shirts from the 80s. Because you guys have been waiting an awful long time for something like this.
Yeah, we're talking
and
to you,
even the last one did. So now we got to wait because my Steelers are playing tonight, and I don't watch the games anymore, so I'm not watching this one. But I do like to know when they're doing well. I haven't even checked the score tonight. So should we do that real quick, Chris?
We'll check the score. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, why not? Oh, didn't want to. Showing 20-9. Steelers losing. Third quarter still, and we are a late game team, so I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath on it, and these aren't games I bet on because I never bet close to my heart. But I wondered who was going to be hungrier between New England and Pittsburgh for this one because neither one of them have gone through a long time in recent memory without a trophy. The Falcons, I think, are hungry enough this year.
Okay. Well,
I'm not much of a sports reporter. Cam could have handled that better, but I figured I had to do something.
Right, fair enough. So, about ready to move into our next segment there?
We can do white hats if you're ready to do white hats.
Yep, bear with me just a second. We've got one viewer. One viewer, I love you. Stay with me just a second. This thing that's happening right now is for editing purposes. And it's going a little slower than I had wanted it to. I apologize for that.
Yep, that dedicated video stuff's starting to become more a reality.
Yes, it is.
Show's going to be getting expensive. Please, if you would, follow our links and consider donating to our Patreon account. We would love to bring you higher quality stuff, and we are trying. We are trying. It is greatly appreciated.
Okay. So you ready to do this, Steve-O?
Let's do this.
All right. So this is our final weekly segment. Hashtag White Hats Matter. And Steve's got us a heartwarming story of death and destruction.
And I do have one that definitely makes one sit up and take notice. This one comes to us out of Decatur, Alabama. A lot of our followers and things are from Georgia, but this is from Alabama. In what Decatur police are calling a case of self-defense, a man was fatally shot early this morning, which would have been January 19th. And this is in the AL.com website is where I'm getting the report. I'm sorry, I was remiss in saying that to start with. Author was Ashley Remkus. Fatally shot early the morning of January 19th after allegedly breaking into his ex-wife's home. 36 was found dead inside his ex-wife's home. Not going to give the address. Quoted by a detective. The ex-wife was in her home with her children and another person, police said. Moody is accused of smashing out a window to the master bedroom and kicking in the front door, according to a police investigation. It is believed that Bruce Moody was armed with a box cutter, Young said in a news release. When Bruce Moody reached the master bedroom, Jarman opened fire with a pistol, who was the visitor in the house, striking Bruce Moody, who died. Moody's body, which sustained multiple gunshot wounds. This is for Cam. Hashtag DRT. Was transported to the Alabama Department of Forensics in Huntsville for an autopsy. Cases believed to be self-defense will be sent to the Morgan County Grand Jury for review. So, whether or not there was any past violence between them or anything that way, the ex-wife started a new relationship. Sounds like the guy didn't like it and went to do something about it. And it doesn't matter if she found somebody, if she wanted him away, had a restraining order. There is nothing standing between you and your safety but you. This restraining order is a piece of paper. It doesn't do a good job of blocking doors and windows.
That's right. Yes, a piece of paper is concealment, not cover. Okay.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Brushfire Mind. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope to see you next week. Please like us, follow us, subscribe to the channel, donate to the Patreon account. Keep tuning in every week. Help us spread the message. Help us make sure that the new president has support. Helps make sure that we love our country and everybody knows it.
And the truth should matter.
The truth should matter. And remember, if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Good night.